Today, we're getting a better idea of what happened yesterday on Christmas morning when a man killed his wife and then himself at a Thornton house of worship. Kevin Vaughn from our 9 Wants to Know team talked with a witness and a police today. He's walking us now through a sequence of events. Pretty confusing day.
Tom, we should note that Jehovah's Witnesses do not celebrate Christmas, but this congregation's normal Sunday gathering was set for 9:30 a.m. A few minutes after 9 a.m., police tell us there was one person inside the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses in Thornton and two others in the parking lot, a husband and wife who were former members of the congregation.
I just heard arguing, so I opened up the front door and I didn't see anybody.
Tani Ansel was across the street, wrapping a few last-minute gifts. At first, she saw nothing ominous and closed her door.
And then I heard more arguing, then we heard glass break.
According to Thornton police, that's when 3 pipe bomb-like devices were thrown through a front window.
And then I heard a big bang, and then a couple seconds later I heard another big bang.
Those bangs were gunfire. As police tell us, the man shot and killed his wife in the parking lot, moved a short distance away, and ended his own life. Roughly 24 hours later, as a crew was replacing that broken window and a carpet cleaning truck droned, Ansel was left to contemplate what she'd heard and seen.
They're really nice people. They're really humble. They're super, super nice. I didn't expect nothing like this from them.
A small number of people were arriving for that 9:30 a.m. meeting as this incident unfolded. Thornton police tell us those witnesses have been interviewed. In the meantime, the Adams County Coroner's Office has not yet made public the identities of the 2 people who died.
It seems like officials are being tight-lipped still about exactly what they do know or what they think may have happened.
That's true. We have been told that this couple were former members of this congregation, for example, but a person with the Jehovah's Witness I spoke to a little while ago would not say anything about how long they'd been members, when they had left, any of that kind of stuff. And it's been the same with the police and the coroner's office as well. Very little new information today.
How many roads? Too many signs, I can't read them. Wouldn't recognize the turn even if I seen it. Been driving all along, feel like I'm dreaming. Okay.
All right, I'm trying to see if we are live, checking everything here. This is Street Apologists Live. I'm your host, Vocab Malone. This is a show where we serve the underserved and look into the overlooked. I'm going to discuss Jehovah's Witnesses today, as I recently had a chance to witness to some Jehovah's Witnesses in an airport during a trip to California, and it reminded me of the importance of sharing the gospel with them, this recent story. So I want to talk about it, and then I'm going to play some audio of my conversation with the 2 Jehovah's Witnesses in the airport. So this is Thornton, Colorado, and the local news, December 25th, 2022. And what it says is 2 dead in Christmas morning shooting at Jehovah's Witnesses congregation in Thornton. Thornton is a smaller city just north of Denver, Colorado. So for all practical intents and purposes, we're basically talking about Denver to the outsiders. 2 people are dead, and a suspicious device is being evaluated by first responders at a Jehovah's Witness congregation in Thornton. According to a tweet posted at roughly 10:30 a.m. on Sunday by officials with the Thornton Police Department, they've launched a homicide investigation. At roughly 9 a.m., first responders with TPD were called to 951 Milky Way, where the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses congregation is located. Fox 31, that's the local Fox News affiliate there in Denver, has reported on the scene, who were told by witnesses that someone had fired a gun in the parking lot. TPD told Fox 31 that the 2 deceased people were a married couple, and the man shot and killed the woman before he turned the gun on himself and took his own life. They are both former members of the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses. Dear friends, today's meeting will be held on Zoom due to a tragic incident that occurred at the Kingdom Hall this morning. Various reports are on the news, however, we don't have all the information at this time. Please be assured that the local bodies of elders will be caring for the needs of the affected congregations. An internal message from an anonymous member of the congregation obtained by Fox 31. At approximately 11 a.m., Adams County Sheriff's Department Hazardous Materials Unit arrived on the scene to evaluate a suspicious device located at the scene. A news release from TPD said 3 incendiary devices were found and rendered safe. TPD also said that there were no additional suspects and that no other people were injured in the incident. The Sherwood Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses provided a statement. We are shocked and deeply saddened by the unprovoked attack and loss of life at our Kingdom Hall in Thornton. We are cooperating with the authorities as they carry out their investigation into the event. Our hearts go out to the family and friends of those who have been traumatized by the heinous actions that took the life of an innocent victim and threatened the lives of many others. We are praying for the families of all those affected. This is an ongoing story and will be updated. So we may get into some of the other updates, but what I want to do first is actually show you a recent example of where I spoke to some Jehovah's Witnesses. I've got some audio of the encounter. They're a very nice couple. And they were also a married couple, and this was in California, though. I'm tying the things together. I'm not saying they're directly related, other than obviously it's Jehovah's Witnesses. But it just reminds us as Christians of the urgency of sharing the gospel with the Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, in this particular case, these folks apparently were no longer in good standing with the congregation there, and they did not. It's sad what happened, but fortunately no one inside was killed. So it appears the man and his wife pulled outside the parking lot, and then he killed her and then killed himself. So they were both former members. It appears they both had lost their jobs earlier that year. And I was waiting to talk about this and tie it in with my recent encounter with Jehovah's Witnesses, but no more information has come forth since 12 days ago when this happened. So it's relatively recent within the span of what we cover here. So let's listen to some of this audio. And this is from the Ontario Airport. Ontario Airport is where this audio is.
How you guys doing today?
How are you?
All right. My name is John Mark.
Nice to meet you, Joe.
Guess I've Spanish and English, you see?
Oops. Let me start that over again. My bad.
How you guys doing today?
How are you?
All right. My name is John Mark.
Nice to meet you, Joe.
Guess I've Spanish and English, you see?
Yeah. Is that a Bible over here?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Yes, it is. It's funny.
The audio starts off
Does a
rough.
little bit. I used
It
to
does improve.
talk to
The audio is rougher in the beginning, and it's just audio. But it's my audio. So let's take a listen and a comment on this.
You know, because of COVID, we weren't doing this because we were just trying to stay as safe as possible.
did get a letter.
And so right there, I talked to the couple there at the airport, the Jehovah's Witness couple, about how, I had not seen them out and about as much. And she was saying, due to COVID restrictions. And some of you guys have noticed that the Jehovah's Witnesses have not been going to door and door as much recently. I think things are changing now, similar with the Mormons. And during that time of COVID, a lot of people got a letter written by the local Jehovah's Witnesses in their area, especially if you live in a city. I received a letter or two myself, as well as some people I know received letters, handwritten letters from Jehovah's Witnesses, basically to the neighbors. And that was what they did differently during that time, which I thought was an interesting personal touch, under the circumstances, pretty ingenious, pretty creative. And so I'm talking about that. And if you notice, Jehovah's Witnesses don't focus, from what I've seen as an outsider, as much on door-to-door proselytizing, but they still focus on it. But they do now bus stations, bus stops more, and also at the airport. So what I'm going to tell you guys is look for Jehovah's Witnesses at the airport, especially if you're arriving. And if you have to wait, talk to them in Jesus' name. In Jesus' name. And the reason why we're reminded about this is urgent is because of the situation that happened, which I'm going to play some video again later. I know people are coming in late. I'm going to, in a few minutes here, I'm going to share again what happened there in Thornton, Colorado. But let's continue with this audio.
Yeah, we've been writing letters and doing phone calls, but
I figured I was like, they probably sent this letter since they're not going out, you know what I mean?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So now that we're living with COVID, we're back out and we're here. You'll start seeing us everywhere. We're at downtown Disney.
Oh, yeah?
Going door to door again.
I'll just be here a few days, but...
She said they're also at downtown Disney. because again, I'm in the L.A. area, specifically Ontario, Colorado here, and she said that they're going door to door again. That's what she said, and I'm just reiterating.
Yeah, sometimes I do see folks in Phoenix at the bus stop. I always feel a little sorry for them. It's very hot out.
Oh yeah.
Summer, and you said Alex?
So I said I feel sorry for
Alex, like with a C? Okay.
the Jehovah's Witnesses I see out in Phoenix because it's so hot outside.
Yeah,
That was my comment to them. That's going to come back up later in the conversation. So listen, you'll hear it at the end. This is about 20-minute conversation.
other types of people, or is there any kind of common person that tends to talk, stop and talk?
The only common thing is that we're all different.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
All kinds of people come and stop, and
Okay.
some for different reasons. Some are upset that we're here.
Upset? Or they don't think you should be allowed to be here?
So I asked them about reactions to them being there, which I'm genuinely curious about. And they're saying we get all kinds of reactions, and some people are upset that they're there. He was making notes. So that's just how we were talking in the beginning. And we had an interesting conversation here.
Or they're upset that we believe differently than them, or some people want to express that, and that's a bummer.
A lot of people are searching though for answers like, will suffering never
That's
end?
the majority of
Yeah.
Yeah.
you think about, well, Bible quotes.
So he said, some people are upset that they believe different and they want to express that. But she said, well, also a lot of people are searching for answers. And I did get some literature from them. The way you can see a Jehovah's Witnesses, they always have these days when they do the setups, a literature stand of some sort. Sometimes they have a table. Usually it's a vertical stand. And so I got some literature from them. This is some of the most current literature. This is from the fall of 2022. I believe I was there in the fall. I need to look up the date. It was actually mid-September, now that I remember. So this is mid-September when I was there with them, and I just grabbed whatever was available. And I have not went through all of these, but it's two different publications, Awake, and then also you also get some of the common ones, like this is evergreen content, as we might call it, you see here. But then Awake is something that is like a little more pop friendly, and then the Watchtower itself, that's a magazine that's more doctrine and theology. And so that's what I picked up from the stand that they had there.
Say what?
A Bible course should be free.
Oh, right, yeah. Can I have one of these?
Absolutely.
It's a nice display you guys have. I like it. I'll just take the English one. That's okay.
That brochure that you took?
Yeah.
It's actually
This
meant,
one?
yeah, it's actually meant to be a Bible discussion. It's Bible lessons. And so if you see it, it's meant for to discuss with somebody.
Oh,
so,
I see.
Yeah. Can we demonstrate with you how it is made for?
Sure.
Yeah.
If you have a Bible there, so how about we look up Psalms 22?
So one of the pieces of literature I took, Enjoy Life Forever, Introductory Bible Lessons, it's designed where you go through this with a witness, ideally, would be the idea here. And then it has related videos that you can watch out at the JW website. And it has, I think, 3 or 4 different lessons here. How can the Bible help you? The Bible gives hope is the second lesson, and the third lesson is can you trust the Bible? So it looks like three lessons here. And it's, I think, a distilled version of this. This is the classic book they will always give you. In the modern era, this is the Bible that you will always get from them. And at the back, it says, ask for a free Bible study, jw.org. And by the way, I don't know if you know, but some of the Hebrew Israelites who come against Christian doctrine, they will go to jw.org and find polemics against Christians, especially in relationship to the deity of Christ. That's a key area. So anyway, she's telling me about the literature, and it is important to note that we do have evidence from former members, for example, of Hebrew Israelites borrowing Jehovah's Witness arguments against Christian Christology. Continuing on.
Verse 26.
It's a good one. Jesus said that one from the cross. Remember, my God, why did you forsake me? Psalm 22, in the beginning. It's a really cool one because it's prophetic. My God, why did you forsake me?
Yeah.
So he uttered that, from the cross.
So he asked to turn to Psalm 22, and when he did, I just mentioned, hey, that's one of the things that Jesus uttered from the cross. Now, I know they don't believe that Jesus died on the cross. They believe it was a torture stake. But remember Psalm 22:1, my God, why have you forsaken me? And Jesus utters those very words from the cross in Matthew 27:46 and in Mark 15:34. And I was mentioning that. Now, the gentleman did not seem to be aware that he was going there for another purpose. But let's listen to this.
Although you wouldn't say cross here state, but as he was dying,
There you go.
as he was dying, this is what he said. It's so cool because he's kind of calling people's mind this whole passage, you know. And what's really awesome is the way it's like very predictive of what is going to happen, you know, like the afflicted shall. Hold on, sorry. Like here's a good one. Like, I poured out like water, all my bones are out of joint, my heart is like wax.
So I know that he asked me to go to Psalm 22, but I wanted to take a little time to point him to Jesus and also to remind him of Messianic prophecy. Now, if you look up Jehovah's Witnesses' writings, they have a bunch of fulfilled Messianic prophecy. So we would be agreeing there, wouldn't be a disagreement as far as that goes. But that is just what we were talking about. What was interesting, he was mainly going there for a different reason. So let's see this.
Help me in my breast, my strength is right up with a potsherd, and my tongue sticks to my jaws. Lay me in the dust of death, dogs accomplish me evil, accompany evildoers who serve me. They have pierced my hands and feet. I can count on my bones. They stare and gloat over me, they divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. So it's really cool because, you know, there's like 700 years before Jesus. So it's actually more like 1,900 years before Jesus. David wrote that. Fulfilled later on.
This part of
Amen. Absolutely. Go right here. Okay.
the meek will be satisfied. Those seeking Jehovah will praise Him. May you enjoy life forever. Even the Bible is a little example. It's not something that
Attention channel check. Return to security checkpoint.
how do you feel
Again, check the race
living forever on
Return to
earth?
security checkpoint. Decline.
Well, I believe the Bible teaches to be a new heaven and new earth, and the heavenly city comes down. The Bible says in Revelation, and so that's what it would be. I think there is a difference there between what witnesses hold to and Christians. Now, probably I'd imagine a lot of Christians you talk to are surprised or something like that we live on earth forever. But that's the Bible teaches. That's plain. It's just sometimes people are influenced by pop culture and things like that. But I think the difference, from what I understand, would be, I imagine you would say there's 144,000 that are there, and the rest of the great cloud.
So I talk a little bit about Jehovah's Witness doctrine there. He is bringing up some things about the people of God, and I immediately go to the people of God in relationship to the 144,000. So Jehovah's Witnesses have a special class of Jehovah's Witness who will be essentially with Jehovah in heaven. That's 144,000, a literal number. And the bulk of people who are servants of Jehovah spend time on the earth away from Jehovah. I'm trying to get it exactly right. I believe that's my understanding. And so we're talking about that, whereas I believe the 144,000 is a symbolic representation of the people of God. It is the number representative of the great crowd that John turns around and sees. And that's a pretty traditional Christian interpretation that I believe is accurate. So continuing on here with this audience.
Here, the difference would be 144,000. Most Christians you talk to, if you ever get into that with them, I bet they might look at it very literally or something. The 144,000, a long strand of Protestant interpretation of that is something that a lot of the American evangelicals don't know, because they sometimes think Christianity started with them, is that actually the 145,000 is a symbolic representation of the church. That's why it's such a particular number, right? 12,000 from each 12 tribes, 144,000, you know? And it's interesting, he says, I heard the number, John says he heard the number in Revelation, and he says he turned, but saw a great crowd, right? So he hears one thing, but then when he turns and sees it, it's a great crowd, a multitude. Showing symbolically the churches in Israel. And that 144,000 is not a literal number. It's a number of perfection. That's why it says when he sees what the number is, it's a great crowd. And that's why you look at that list, it's given the 12,000 from the 12 tribes. Dan is absent, right? You know,
So there, I'm breaking down Revelation 7. I've done a number of videos on this. If you go to my channel and put 144,000 or Revelation, you will see a number of videos on this. But again, to reset everyone, what we're talking about today are the Jehovah's Witnesses. And there was recently a terrible tragedy. And what I wanted to do is update everyone on the tragedy. It was a shooting in Thornton, Colorado.
Today, we're getting a better idea of what happened yesterday on Christmas.
There was a murder-suicide in Thornton over the weekend. Now, we've learned 3 incendiary devices were found at that Jehovah's Witness hall where it happened. That's where police say a husband killed his wife and then himself. Our Olivia Young covers Adams County for you and reports from that house of worship.
This Thornton church was the scene of a Christmas morning tragedy when a former congregation member threw multiple pipe bomb-like devices through this window behind me and then shot his wife and then himself here in the parking lot. Around 9 a.m. Sunday, Thornton police say the window to Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses was broken when the explosive devices were thrown inside. Luckily, the bombs did not detonate, but caused a small fire which police responded to. Only one person was inside the building preparing for services, and they were not harmed. The man who threw the explosives then shot and killed the woman with him, and then himself in the parking lot. Congregation members arriving for the Sunday service found the bodies. Thornton police say the couple never entered the church or attempted to shoot anyone else. The Adams County Coroner's Office has not yet named the deceased couple, but we know they were married and used to be members of the Kingdom Hall congregation. Thornton police say it's not clear whether the couple was working together or if the husband acted alone and the wife was a victim. Now, the building was released back to its owners late Christmas night after Adams County's hazardous materials team did a sweep to make sure there were no more explosive devices inside. Representatives from Kingdom Hall declined an interview today, but did tell me they're working on getting things cleaned up so that services can resume on Wednesday. In Thornton, I'm Olivia Young, covering Colorado First.
And Olivia is your reporter. If you live...
how you guys doing today?
Okay, we're going to continue on with the audio. So that's what happened, and that tragedy just reminds us of the importance of witnessing to Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm obviously not saying it's anyone in the Kingdom Hall's fault there that the former member outside of the congregation, the Kingdom Hall there, killed his wife and then killed himself. I'm not saying that. I'm glad they made it out safe. I'm just saying that it's a good reminder, these kinds of things, of the importance of witnessing to Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, since this story broke, I haven't seen or heard of any other news updates. This is the one thing really that we know, but it reminded me of some audio that I had not played yet, where I did speak to 2 Jehovah's Witnesses, also a married couple, a man and his wife, younger, and it was at the Ontario, California airport. Let's continue on and listen to this audio and see where we're at in this discussion.
Maybe in the past, maybe the witnesses, it's possible, maybe that's something they got wrong, that it's this little number of people. Because if they interpreted the number little, 140,000, it seemed like the witnesses then would need to interpret.
So still speaking about the number 144,000, and it's something very important to Jehovah's Witnesses, and you've got to understand that they don't believe really anyone else can be added to that number anymore. And the reason for that is there's a cutoff date within the time that originally Jesus was predicted to return. And when he didn't return at the predicted cutoff date, they made it essentially a spiritual ascension. And 144,000 had to be people who were alive in 1914. And so there's really no way to get into that 144,000 number anymore because most people alive today were not alive in 1914.
Literature that you picked up.
Well, I have always liked to try to understand what people believe.
So there she asked me, why did I take the literature and why was I interested in this conversation and this topic? And I'm explaining why here as a Christian.
Glad, I believe, we live in a place where you can, to an extent, obviously, I wish it was actually more, really.
So I'm telling her that I'm glad they have freedom of speech. I'm not against that, but I'm also glad that I can dialogue about our differences with them. That's the nature of this conversation right here, which was a very friendly, cordial conversation. This is not about disliking Jehovah's Witnesses. Usually very friendly, and this couple was no exception. But we need to talk about what the Bible really teaches.
What's actually being said. That way I'm not just like, oh, Jehovah, you know, have some understanding, okay, here's what the... And then see points of agreement.
And so, you know, I try to tell them, yes, I'm a Christian. I don't hide that. You know, Protestant, not a Jehovah's Witness, but that I want to understand what they actually believe and be able to dialogue with them and not just dismiss them or wave them off. Because the Jehovah's Witnesses are close to Christianity in a lot of ways. They have a faith in the Bible. They have a faith in God. Now they have a different Jesus, a different gospel, and really even a different Bible. But we're similar. I mean, the leaders came out of a Christian or Protestant background. We recognize that, and in some ways they've improved their doctrine. In some ways, some of the history is a little shady or suspect there. But we got to try to show love to our neighbor.
I found that they embrace a form of open theism, which is God is not...
So there I mentioned about Jehovah's Witness theology. I don't know if a lot of people know, but Jehovah's Witnesses embrace a form of open theism, whereas God does not know all events in the future. It's essentially open theism that Jehovah's Witnesses embrace and believe in. And I'm mentioning that there to her because that is a decidedly unorthodox and unbiblical view.
Seem to be completely 100% aware of the future, and there can be even mistakes or errors. At least that's what some of the kind of apologists for the witnesses have said historically. I'm not sure if you're aware of what I'm talking about, but I'll stop there. But I'm interested to try to understand, and because I love the Bible. You know, you guys' original name, Bible students, right? Before it changed to Jehovah's Witnesses in 1930, in Columbus, Ohio, where I'm from, originally. So
sounds like you know a lot about Jehovah's Witnesses.
Well, I had a lot of witness friends growing up in Columbus. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and there's a lot of witness friends, and I wanted to try to understand them. And you know, some people have bad opinion or they get mad if someone knocks on the door. I never felt that way. If I had time, I would invite someone in. Hey, it's hot outside, we can talk. But it didn't mean I didn't think the differences were important to explore. You know what I mean? And sometimes I'll try to talk to witness sisters, show them Protestants don't have to be mad or upset and could try to understand you and see some points of agreement, but also want to talk about important issues while still showing hopefully respect and love, you know? Show, like, if you came to my door, I wouldn't shut the door in your face. I wouldn't be upset, you know? I'd be like, hey, I'm glad you're here. If I had time to talk. Since my guy's late, I have 10 minutes, so I said, let's talk. But I mean, you know, let me stop because you were beginning to start something. I went off. No.
I said, hey, I got 10 minutes, so let's talk because my guy was late. The guy picking me up from the airport, by the way, was David Wood. So if you're glad I was able to, by God's grace, share the gospel and speak to Jehovah's Witnesses, hopefully in love, you can thank David Wood because David Wood was about 15 minutes late picking me up from the airport. And so I saw them there by the door and I said, well, I've got a little bit of time. I believe it's the Lord's doing. And so that's how this conversation happened. And by the way, I just noticed somehow I've had 2 broadcast pages for this. Please ignore the other link. Maybe check to see if anyone's still over there. I just unlisted it. I don't know how that happened. A little bit of technical difficulty today. And I heard I was muted. How long was I muted for? My goodness. But anyways, that's what's going on. This was right before the our Strong Tower conference there in California in commemoration of 9/11. That's what's going on.
I appreciate the way you discussed it. It's a very respectful. never admit to say my way is the right way. Right? So
Walsh asks, is it true they believe Jehovah only created Archangel Michael who then becomes Jesus? My understanding is that is exactly what they believe. Jesus is now Michael. John says it's either him or SDA, or both are believing. I don't know what SDA believes in the case, but I know Jehovah's Witnesses do.
For example, preaching translation
So here the man is mainly speaking in this time. And again, to reiterate, this is a husband and wife couple that I saw at the Ontario airport in California and decided to have a conversation with them about the gospel. And I know some of the audio is a little clouded or a little muted at certain points. Oh, okay. Okay. I'm trying to work this out, man.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
To understand that when you might need in your language. So, those are two.
So this is the part of the conversation, and I realized the audio is a little worse than I thought, and I was trying to turn it down, but it looks like if I speak over it at all, according to the live chat, you're not able to hear me. I apologize about all this. My goodness. I'm trying to do something good here on a Saturday, and it's just blah, 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 blah. Which reminds me, something else that I did on a Saturday was I did briefly talk to IUIC here in Phoenix, and yeah, they're starting to push me around. So I follow them, and then if I get in their mind to them, I show up where they're at, and then they follow me. I know I'm changing topics briefly here. I'm waiting until the audio hopefully improves. I show up to where they are in the public corner, and then they follow me, and then they feel if I get too close to them, even though they're the ones who send 3 men to follow me on the corner. I'm not joking. I have video of it. They push me. So I got kind of manhandled a little bit today by IUIC. I got pushed probably 3 times by them, and it's because they're following me. You know, they're following me, and then they'll say, well, you're getting too close when I try to move in a direction that they don't want me to get to. So I see that IUIC is kind of showing who they are. And I said, hey, man, do what you got to do. If you're going to punch me, go ahead in Jesus' name. And he said, it will be in Jesus' name. That's what he said, because he was certain like he was going to. And I said, okay. It was very interesting today there. But this conversation with the Jehovah's Witnesses was much better. Much better. They're much friendlier, and I have nothing but love for these folks. And I just remind you, pray for your Jehovah's Witness neighbors. Let's see if this audio is improved.
It's Jehoshaphat, or Yehoshua and Joshua. So for us in English, yeah, we do that.
Okay, so we're still talking here about the name of God. The name of God. And that is something very important to Jehovah's Witnesses. And when I mentioned that Jehovah is a translation that's a mistake, they really didn't know what I was talking about, these particular ones. Now, I've mentioned that to Jehovah's Witnesses before, that Jehovah is a mistake as far as the name. You know, it's essentially a Germanicized, anglicized joint. And they did not know, and the guy said, well, the one that did know, not in this conversation, said, well, at least we're trying. So here's Jesus in the Name of God, a little section in one of their books called Mankind's Search for God, where they criticize other religions. And let's see here what it says. I'm just going to read the sections here where they speak. Jesus in the name of God. When teaching his disciples how to pray, Jesus said, and it quotes Matthew 6, 9, and 10. Jesus knew the vital significance of his Father's name and gave emphasis to it. Thus, to his religious enemies, he said, and then it mentions John 5 and Mark 12. In prayer to his Father, Jesus said. On a later occasion, Jesus prayed. So they're trying to show all the times Jesus prayed to the Father. And this says this. As a Jew, Jesus had to be conversant with his Father's name. That's an interesting way to put it. Jehovah or Yahweh. For he knew the scripture that says, and they quote Isaiah 43:10, which is where they get their name from. You are my witnesses, is the utterance of Jehovah, even my servant whom I have chosen. Therefore, the Jews as a nation were chosen to be Jehovah's Witnesses. This is what their book says here. They don't have page numbers here, but this is Mankind's Search for God. It literally says the Jews as a nation were chosen to be Jehovah's Witnesses. As a Jew, Jesus was also a witness of Jehovah. Revelation 3:14. I'm going to keep on going on here. Let's see if the audio's improved a little bit here.
The issue is with Jehovah's Witnesses sort of pushing Jehovah when they know it's not even a Hebrew term, you know?
So we're still talking about the name there, and some of our disagreements there. And I'm going to continue reading so you can see what they say about it. Apparently, by the 1st century, most Jews were no longer pronouncing God's revealed name. However, there are manuscripts that prove that early Christians using the Greek Septuagint translation of the Hebrew Scriptures could have seen the Hebrew Tetragrammaton used in the Greek text. As George Howard, a professor of religion and Hebrew, stated, quote, when the Septuagint, which the New Testament church used and quoted, contained the Hebrew form of the divine name, the New Testament writers no doubt included the Tetragrammaton in their quotations. But when the Hebrew form for the divine name was later eliminated in favor of Greek substitutes in the Septuagint, it was eliminated also from the New Testament quotations of the Septuagint. Therefore, Professor Howard reasons that first century Christians must have clearly understood texts such as Matthew 22:44, where Jesus quoted the Hebrew Scriptures to his enemies. Howard says, the first century church probably read, Yahweh said to my Lord, instead of the later version, the Lord said to my Lord, which is as ambiguous as it is precise, Psalm 110:1. That Jesus used the divine name is attested to by the Jewish accusation centuries after his death, that if he performed miracles, it was only because he had made himself master of the secret name of God. That's called from the Book of Jewish Knowledge. Jesus certainly knew God's unique name. In spite of Jewish tradition at that time, Jesus would surely have used the name. He did not allow the traditions of men to overrule the law of God. Fascinating, right? Fascinating. Continuing on here.
The point that I was making.
Yes.
It's not quite the right way. No J's in here. We discussed that.
Jesus is the right way, though, to say in the Greek word Euseus, but Jehovah is not the right way to say Yahweh translated.
So really what you're talking about is it depends on what language you're translating from.
Yes.
If it's right or wrong.
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, it would depend what language you're going from and what language you're going to. If it's an accurate translation, yes, that would be the difference.
Yeah, so I guess the point I'm making is, what did Jesus the apostles got?
Most likely you should. Most likely. If you had some disciples who say were primarily Greek speakers, which I don't mean disciples, the 12, I mean a larger body, maybe they might have said Euseus or something like that, or maybe even Christos, they might have called by the title of the Messiah. But obviously the original 12 are going to be saying an Aramaic or Hebraic word to, like his mom called him Yeshua, not Jesus. You know?
So, but we don't have a problem with saying the J, that's not a problem in English, because the Greek got in there as well.
Yeah, well, the Greek New Testament and then Hebrew Old Testament. So, but with Jehovah, it's not an accurate translation. So Jesus is an accurate translation in English from Euseus. If you're going to say God's name translated from the Tetragrammaton, it wouldn't be Jehovah, it would be Yahweh.
Well, let's agree on that.
Okay.
Let's agree on that.
Okay.
We can sit here all day, and I'll tell you,
Okay, so we're still talking about that, and that's because that's important to them. But what is Jehovah? It's a medieval attempt to try to essentially approximate the Tetragrammaton, YHWH. People aren't even exactly sure how that name was originally pronounced. So Jehovah is not more literal. It's not more, sanctified or sacred than YHWH, which is the personal name of God in the Hebrew Bible. It does occur almost 7,000 times in the Old Testament. It's a very the most common way of referring to God. And what happens is translations and traditions did develop different ways to represent this without crudely spelling out Yahweh, because that was viewed as something that you should not do in order to avoid taking God's name in vain. And so you'll see English translations following that practice where they put Lord. This was something that was initially initiated by the Septuagint itself, followed then in the Latin Vulgate. And you can see this in your Bibles. When you see the small caps Lord, that is Adonai. And when you I'm sorry, I'm saying it wrong. So to be masters of Mark Yahweh is online. He was the Lord. The all caps is for Yahweh, basically. In the lowercase, which is the capital L, that's Adonai. And some of the Jewish traditions still will do Yahweh as Hashem. And the American Standard Version of 1901 was unique in that it did translate Yahweh as Jehovah. And actually, the Jehovah's Witnesses used the ASV 1901 until they made their own. And so that was going on there. And most of you have seen the Paleo-Hebrew for Yahweh, and it's just essentially 4 consonants. That's all it is. And so since it was not pronounced, there was a question about, okay, then how does it work? Now, let me read directly here from an article in Apologetics Press. This is a good article, and it will give some background here. Okay, let me just, let me bring this on the screen here. I didn't really intend to do this. Remember, we've got 3 minutes left of the dialogue here. So, but I do need to briefly show this here. Okay. Because someone asked, I saw a comment in the live chat relationship to this. The Masoretic manuscripts of the Hebrew Bible reflect the ancient custom of pronouncing Adonai in the place of Yahweh. The term Adonai is a fitting choice. First, the noun Adonai, or the noun Adon, occurs 775 times in the Old Testament, over 400 times in reference to God. Second, suffix a is a marker of the first person singular marker. This is not the part I really wanted to read. Probably in other words, public reading of the Hebrew Scriptures understood. My Lord said to Moses, this was intended as a symbol of respect, but the need for a more literal rendering of the name of God than the standard lore created the desire to use this made-up Masoretic term in English transliteration. So they're given some background. Now listen to this. The word Jehovah first appears in AD 1381. It is easy to understand where it came from. Someone simply transcribed the Masoretic into a European language. In other words, someone simply took the vowels of Adonai and placed them around the consonants of Yahweh. So that's what it is. This yields the name Jehovah. So when you take, because the question is, how do we pronounce this? And so when they took the consonants, because that's all Yahweh is, YHWH. I'm saying it with the vowels, but YHWH, the tetragrammaton, which is all we had, because no one was pronouncing anymore. You're not entirely sure how to pronounce it, but since we knew Adonai, someone took the vowels of Adonai, put them in to Yahweh, and yields Jehovah. This is the English, essentially, or European version, because the J, more or less, the Aleppo and Leningrad codices of the Hebrew Bible write the nonsensical Jehovah, or Jehovah, which takes the vowels of Adonai, except for though, and places them around the consonants of Yahweh. They attempt to preserve in writing a tradition of reading. So that's really what's going on there. English readers are probably wondering exactly how Yahweh becomes Jehovah. To explain, the Y in English represents the sound J in certain other languages. So that's what's going on there. Sorry, I know there's a lot to get through here. This raises half-hour roses. Okay, this is kind of more technical than I thought. But you guys can see the article on the screen. The name Jehovah fell into fashion in early English translations. Tyndale, the Geneva Bible, and others use the term Jehovah at least some of the time to represent the Hebrew Yahweh. The term occurs only 4 times in the KJV. A mixture of Jehovah and Lord remain consistent in most English translations, and they give examples of that. And then they say this. The New World Translation of Jehovah's Witnesses also consistently use the name Jehovah. More recent translations have not followed suit, preferring Lord to Jehovah. So is it the real name of God? No, the Masoretes themselves would not allege, and that's where it came from, that Jehovah represents the name of God. So that's important to understand. And the vowel sounds the Masoretes added to the text represent a reading tradition much later than the biblical text itself. So it's not. The Masoretes did not actually give the name Jehovah or its Hebrew equivalent. So the term Jehovah is less than 700 years old. The Hebrew near equivalent can date no earlier than the Masoretic application of vowels to the consonantal text in the Middle Ages. Do you understand that? So this is a good article on this. Apologetics Press, Where Did Jehovah Come From? Justin Rogers, PhD. This is from their magazine that they put out. It's a pretty good little thing. And you can actually get the PDF right here. Reason and Revelation is the name of it. And so I should probably drop that in there so everybody can grab it. Good stuff. Now, let's go back and listen to the rest of this audio. But before we do, let me play one more time an update so you understand why we're doing this show partially. I have a feeling we're going to go slightly above the new 25-minute mark here. I need to play this video that explains this tragedy, and this is I was reminded of the importance of witnessing to Jehovah's Witnesses in light of this tragedy that happened in Thornton, Colorado. So let's listen to this. I do not believe that we have listened to this. And thank you, Jay Fry, for the super chat yet. Let's hear this.
This morning, right around 8:45. That's when Thornton police say 46-year-old Enoch Apodaca walked into the Electrical Workers Union building on Logan Street in Adams County.
Thank you for the super chat. I'm going to start this over because the appears on the screen, but thank you very much, Jay. Sorry, it's a little chaotic this morning. Please don't hate on me, y'all. But this is from a news report. It's about 2 minutes long. And this actually gives the name of the former Jehovah's Witness who killed himself and his wife outside of a Kingdom Hall. And there's a drone shot of it there in Thornton, Colorado. I'm sorry, that's not that. That's where he left some bombs because he was let go from his job. So this is an updated story and adds some more detail. Fortunately, the bombs did not go off, but apparently he was a fired electrician. And so he's kind of trying to go out in general. So listen to this again.
Christmas morning, right around 8:45. That's when Thornton police say 46-year-old Enoch Apodaca walked into the Electrical Workers Union building on Logan Street in Adams County with a bucket in hand. Minutes later, after police say Apodaca got back into his car and took off, there was a large explosion inside the building, which was closed at the time. No one was hurt. About 15 minutes after that, police say Apodaca drove with his wife, 44-year-old Melissa Apodaca, to the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses in Thornton. According to Thornton police, Apodaca broke a window in the church and threw 3 explosive devices inside. They did not go off. Police say Apodaca then shot and killed his wife before killing himself. According to police, the couple once belonged to the church, but were no longer welcome there for reasons that have not been made clear. Court records also show that both Apodaca and his wife were fired from their jobs last year at an electric company, after which Apodaca threatened to shoot a union representative, Mrs. Apodaca, and people at the company that fired him. Thornton police say they've now found numerous items at Apodaca's Westminster home consistent with the making of explosives found at the Kingdom Hall in Thornton. They also say on Christmas Eve, the night before all this happened, Apodaca reached out to a member of the congregation about coming back to the church and was told he would need to speak with a church elder. Kim?
Well, we knew more was coming. It's upsetting, though, when you hear these details and all the people involved.
Deeply disturbing.
All right. Thank you, Matt.
Okay, so that is a further update there. Okay. And you can see that a lot happened, obviously. You know, a lot happened. Not a good situation, obviously. Not a good situation. But
How you guys doing today?
it could have been worse because he threw some bombs into the Kingdom Hall before he took his wife's life and his own life. And so, thankfully, more people didn't die from this man's actions. And it looks like he also wanted to get revenge on the job who would let him go. So I'm not tying this in with Jehovah's Witness doctrine, okay? I'm not doing that. What I'm saying is this is a reminder for Christians to share the gospel with Jehovah's Witnesses. Do you see what I'm saying? Life is precious. Tomorrow's not promised to any man. That is what I'm saying by that. But I'm not blaming the Jehovah's Witnesses or anything like that anyway, because I saw we had some Jehovah's Witnesses in the live chat. What I was saying with the 25 minutes, Nate, is the audio is about 25 minutes, not that the show will be 25 minutes. So let's try to finish this audio. We're going to go a little bit longer, but we're still going to stay under an hour here.
I'll tell you, I am not a scholar who translates and knows ancient Hebrew or ancient Greek.
He's saying I'm not an.
You guys have Spanish?
I'm not an expert in ancient Hebrew or ancient Greek. That's what he's saying there.
What I have is I know God has a name. He's not God. He has a name.
But the name of God is what he initially had wanted to talk about. And now it's directly tied in with, understanding God and all of that. But now he's more just talking about knowing that he's loved by Jehovah, I believe.
Right? For God, right. I want to know, who is God? What is he like?
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
I want to know who is God and what is he like. So that, Jehovah's Witnesses, a lot of these folks, they're really seeking and searching. And I pray that they maintain a love for the Bible, the genuine article, and can see that the gospel is taught there, but it's not what the Watchtower teaches. You know?
Sorry, I know it's rude, but what's up, you here? Well, where I said, what are you driving?
Oh, that part is actually me on the phone with David Wood. That's actually me talking to David, in that part right there. Most of you have seen, the Jehovah's Witness translation of the Bible. I didn't pick that up there, though I think they had some out. The New World Translation of the Holy Scriptures. There's been some interesting changes that have happened to this, as well as the Greek interlinear that they have. But that's that. This is the copy that I've used to witness to witnesses for years. That's why I got all these, vocab notes and stuff like that in it in regards to it. But, these folks are still active. I mean, they put out cartoons for kids, become Jehovah's friend, listen, obey, and be blessed. I got this from a Jehovah's Witness neighbor, message to your family. Why should you obey daddy and mommy? You learn the answer with Caleb. What toy is Caleb playing with? How does he become Jehovah's friends? Sing with us. Still there. Let me see if I'm off the phone call with David in this audio.
You guys probably consider considers almost like pop culture that it's harder than ever to be a Christian in society. And I know it's harder for you guys as well. So I always respect what you do. In a sense of passion and dedication, especially in the way the culture, the society is. But the differences are pretty big. And I've read enough witness literature to know you guys are very kind people. There's a lot of witness literature that really it's pretty hostile towards Protestant theology, especially the Trinity. And I've read the pamphlet, Should You Believe the Trinity, Pagan Doctrine, all that. And those are important things, to talk about. We don't have time now, I know, but I appreciate your spirit and demeanor, and I think it's cool you guys could do this together as a married couple.
We do too.
I just have one other thing.
Sure.
You said that you felt bad for people in Arizona.
It's hot.
In the heat.
Yes.
Don't feel bad.
So there I'm saying, you guys have been friendly, and, I know sometimes people are not friendly to you, and I understand that. But a lot of your literature really does go hardcore after Christian doctrine. I've got, let me see here. I've got a book I'm going to recommend called The Watchtower Files, Dialogue with a Jehovah's Witness. This book by Dwayne Magnani is excellent, published by Bethany House, in that it has photocopies of this stuff, because for years it was difficult to actually try to show Jehovah's Witness what their own primary documents would teach. And I remember I went to great lengths to try to get them to see this stuff. And this was helpful in that it would have old school, photo like reproductions of some of their own literature. Here's Awake 1973. And some of them would say, well, that's been changed, you know what I mean? But this is an excellent book that I recommend, and has a kind of a mock dialogue as well between a Jehovah's Witness and a Christian. But I recommend the Watchtower Files so you can understand their own internal documents better, which are pretty hostile towards Christian doctrine. I'm not saying they teach, hate or something like that, but it just bangs on the Trinity, bangs on salvation by grace alone, through faith alone, bangs on the deity of Christ, the greatest man who ever lived and all that stuff. It does bang on Christendom, as they call it.
Scripture and songs, your people offer themselves willingly. They're there because they want to. No one's making them.
Oh, no, I know that. I know that.
Don't feel
There's
bad.
no one's, they were out there because they want to be, but I'm just saying it's hot.
Yeah.
So you guys should be glad you're in Cali instead.
And in air conditioning.
But just know that not all, Protestants are upset. Even if we disagree on the fundamental things, we do want to try to understand your beliefs and have a good conversation about it. So just know that there are some of us out there.
Have a great one.
You too. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Don't know if you heard that phone going off, but that phone was actually when David was calling me. Like, hey, where are you, man? But I eventually linked up with him, and we went to the conference, and then saw George Saig there and talked about Islam and the Quran and the Bible and Jesus and Muhammad. And the reason why I did this today is I haven't shared that audio. I know it wasn't the best audio. It was an impromptu thing, but the conversation did happen, and I believe it was a positive conversation. I prayed for them, and I need to remember to do so more. Please pray for them. Just remember the married couple from Ontario, California, that Vocab spoke with in the airport. And let's read about this story again, because this is what prompted me to do this show, to remind us of the urgency of sharing the gospel with our Jehovah's Witness loved ones. And so I do come from a Christian apologetics perspective, everyone. I know some people here just want to hear the anti-cult stuff, and I understand that, or the anti-JW stuff, and I understand that, but I ultimately want to share the gospel with these folks, you know. 3 pipe bomb-style devices were thrown into Kingdom Hall before a husband shot and killed his wife and then himself in the parking lot on Christmas. Now, that's true, but of course, Jehovah's Witnesses were there for their regular day. They do not celebrate Christmas. Thornton, Colorado, that's north of Denver, everyone. Police said 3 pipe bomb-style devices were thrown through a window before a husband and wife died in a murder-suicide on Christmas Day. Around 9 a.m., the Thornton Police Department responded to 9151 Milky Way, where the Kingdom Hall Jehovah's Witnesses congregation is located, in reports of a structure fire. Other reports came in that a man shot and killed a woman and then shot himself in the parking lot, which is what happened. The victims involved in the shooting were a married couple who are former members of the Kingdom Hall, police said. The Adams County Sheriff's Office Hazardous Materials Unit investigated what it called incendiary devices and deemed them safe a couple hours later. The department said it is still investigating whether it was the husband, the wife, or both parties that threw the devices into the building. The only shots fired were those by the husband in the parking lot and not in the Kingdom Hall, police said. No one else was injured in the incident, and the department said the community was safe after the devices were removed. And there's a little bit more on that. Man set off explosion at business before shooting wife himself on Christmas. So, you know, more came out about this street. This is the 5600 block of Logan Street. This is from December 28th, 2022. So still somewhat a recent news story. A man involved in a murder-suicide at Jehovah's Witnesses worship hall on Christmas Day set off a large explosion at his place of business shortly before the deadly incidents, according to the Thornton Police Department. So they initially didn't realize the two things were tied. Enoch Apodaca entered a building in the 5600 block of Logan Street with what appeared to be a bucket around 8:45 a.m. on December 25th, police said. Shortly after he exited the building and got back to his vehicle, an explosion was observed. No one was injured and the business was closed, TPD said. Now, we are glad for that, but he threw 3 of those things into the Kingdom Hall. No one died, thankfully, but, you know, it's interesting the one went off there, but not there. So I believe God is sparing some of those people. Enoch arrives at Kingdom Hall. Enoch and his wife Melissa arrived at King Hall on the 950 block of Milky Way shortly before 9 a.m. Enoch was seen directing Melissa to back a truck up to the building. Enoch then broke a window with a hammer and placed 3 explosive devices into the building. How frightening would that be if you were there that day? My goodness. Police said then he shot Melissa from behind, so she may not have been aware. She may not have been aware that's what he was doing. He thought, apparently, he was going to blow them up just like he did the business and then kill her and then kill himself. And it seems like she was involved with one part of it, but apparently not the other, from what you would have to gather from this. This is tragic, though. 3 pipe bomb-style devices were thrown at the Kingdom Hall before a husband shot and killed his wife, then himself in the parking lot on Christmas Day. None of the explosive devices placed in the worship hall detonated. At the time, there were 2 members at the hall, and 1 member used a fire extinguisher to put out a fire that appeared to originate near one of the devices, TPD said. Interesting. No other injuries were reported. Search at the Apodaca home. Police searched Enoch and Melissa's home and found several items consistent with the manufacturing of explosive devices similar to those found at Kingdom Hall, according to TPD. No other explosive devices were found at the home. TPD said it also appeared that personal belongings had been set out and marked for distribution to specific family members. Almost like some kind of will type thing. Investigators found that Enoch and Melissa had been members of the Kingdom Hall previously, but were no longer welcome. They've been excommunicated, it appears. Enoch reached out to a member the night before the incident, expressed an interest in returning to the congregation. He was told to speak to Kingdom Hall elders, according to TPD. Associated Press said that Denver Post reported a protection order was filed claiming Enoch had threatened to kill Melissa and shoot a union representative after losing his job as an electrician in 2021. According to the AP, the Post reported that Enoch told the union representative after killing him and Melissa that he would come after the people responsible for him and his wife losing their jobs. You know, that is no way. I mean, I'm being serious, to get your wife back, life back. Job back, my goodness. But you know what I'm saying? Seriously. So I just bring this up to let you know this happened, and we tie it in with the urgency to witness to Jehovah's Witnesses. And I told you guys we were going to get out of here under an hour, and we are, so I got to go. Stay tuned where we make apologetics fun again on Street Apologetics.
How many roads? Too many signs, I can't read them. Wouldn't recognize the turn even if I seen it.